Welcome back, my lovely, to From Invisible to Influential in just six weeks, where strategic leadership coaching meets AI tools that think with you. You're listening to the Leader Within podcast with Sue-Ann Higgins. If you've been following along, you've reclaimed your tiger time and built your daily blueprint to move from firefighting to strategic focus. You're building momentum toward becoming a strategic leader who gets seen, heard, and supported. This is week 3 of our 6-week journey. And today we're diving into mastering confident communication by breaking free of imposter syndrome, another essential piece of learning to think, communicate, and show up differently. Fake it till you make it, I hear a lot of leaders say. Mentors preach it, and keynote speakers pounds this message home. But this is an exhausting industry norm that is actually making your imposter syndrome worse and sabotaging your ability to communicate with influence. You've fallen into the try harder trap I call the imposter syndrome trap, one of the self-limiting try harder traps of leadership. It's a pattern where you're constantly performing confidence in conversations, overthinking every word, over-explaining your points because down deep inside, you're terrified someone may realise you don't belong. And here's what I hear others say. I just need to act more confident when I speak. If I fake authority long enough, eventually I'll have it. Everyone else seems to be so sure when they communicate. I understand the appeal completely. When you're feeling like a fraud, pretending to be confident in meetings and conversations seems like the most logical solution. Put on a mask, perfect your leadership presence. Eventually it will become real, right? But here's what no one's telling you. It's not what you're communicating. Your ideas are brilliant. It's how you're communicating that determines whether people actually hear you. If faking confidence in communication was truly effective, then everyone who's been faking it for years would master communications by now, right? We all know that's not true. In fact, research shows the opposite. Leaders who constantly perform confidence in their communication exhaust themselves and trigger the very gatekeepers that block influence. When you're faking it in conversations, you're actually triggering a threat response in other people's brains because unconsciously people detect that you're disconnected between your words and your actual state, making them less likely to hear you, not more. Your content isn't the problem, your delivery is. And when you fake the how, you sabotage the perfectly good what. What if authentic communication, acknowledging what you know and what you're still learning, actually creates more influence than perfect performance ever could? Because the reality is when you fake confidence in conversations, you're training your brain that your authentic voice isn't enough. You feed the very imposter syndrome that undermines your communication. Today, we're talking about escaping the imposter syndrome trap by mastering the 5 gatekeepers of human behavior so that you can transform how you communicate and finally get heard. Let me tell you about Rachel, a strategist who perfectly embodies the imposter syndrome trap that sabotages communication. Rachel is insightful with ideas that could transform her organisation, but imposter syndrome has hijacked her voice. In meetings, she'd stay silent or over-explain, Use tentative language like, I might be wrong, but this probably isn't right. Her typical meeting pattern: rehearse her points obsessively beforehand. Start speaking with, I think maybe, watch as eyes glaze over, then watch in frustration as someone else, usually a male colleague, says the exact same idea with conviction and gets all the credit. Same what, but different how. Completely different impact. The breaking point came during a strategy session. Rachel had identified a critical flaw in a proposed plan. She knew she was right. The data supported her. But when she spoke up, imposter syndrome kicked in. She cushioned her insight with so many qualifiers and apologies that it sounded like a tentative suggestion rather than a crucial intervention. The leadership team dismissed her. 3 months later, the exact issues she identified cost the company $500,000. That night, Rachel realised that she had the right answer. She had the data, she had the expertise, but it wasn't what she was communicating, it was how she was communicating that made them dismiss her. Her imposter syndrome wasn't just in her head. It was leaking into every word, every gesture, and every pause. Rachel had fallen deeper into the imposter syndrome trap, where self-doubt doesn't live in your head. It infiltrates how you communicate, triggering the 5 gatekeepers of human behavior that determine whether people listen or dismiss you. She didn't need better ideas. She needed to master the how. So what's really happening in both your brain and their brain when imposter syndrome hijacks your communication? First, let us understand what I call the 5 gatekeepers of human behavior. These are the 5 invisible triggers that determine whether someone's brain perceives you as trustworthy or threatening in every conversation. When you communicate from imposter syndrome, you unknowingly trigger these gatekeepers in ways that make people less likely to hear you. The first gatekeeper: when you over-explain or minimise your expertise with, I'm probably wrong, others unconsciously perceive you as less valuable. Their brain literally downgrades the importance of what you're saying. The second gatekeeper: when imposter syndrome makes you hedge your bets with maybe or I think, you rob others of the clarity their brain craves. Uncertainty in your voice creates uncertainty in their minds. They literally can't follow unclear communications. The third gatekeeper: when you're so worried about being found out that you become overly directive or controlling in conversations, you trigger resistance. People's brains interpret this as a threat to their sense of control. The fourth gatekeeper: imposter syndrome creates a barrier instead of connecting. Mirror neurons pick up the disconnection, making others feel that you're not genuine with them. They sense something's off, even if they can't name it. And the fifth gatekeeper: when you don't claim your ideas or you give away the credit, it creates confusion about contribution. It makes others uncomfortable because their brain can't map the social dynamic. This is why it's not what you're communicating, but how you're communicating that determines your influence. You could have the most brilliant strategy in the room, but if your how triggers the wrong gatekeepers, your what becomes invisible. Enter the confidence communication loop. When you communicate from imposter syndrome, your amygdala fires, threat detected. They'll find out I'm a fraud. Cortisol floods your system, depleting your prefrontal cortex. Your voice changes. Higher pitch, faster cadence, less resonance. Others' mirror neurons detect this stress. Their amygdalas fire in response. They experience you as less credible, reinforcing your imposter fears. When you communicate from self-doubt, listeners' brains show a decreased activity in areas associated with trust and an increased activity in areas associated with skepticism, even when the content is excellence. Leadership presence isn't about better ideas, it's about better delivery. Master the how, and you and your what will finally get heard. The imposter syndrome trap creates a neurological prison where your self-doubt changes how others process your communication. You're not just feeling like an imposter, you're triggering others to see you that way. In week 3 of the Intentional Leader Blueprint coaching experience, we teach you to escape the imposter syndrome trap by mastering the 5 gatekeepers. But this isn't just about manipulation. It's about understanding how to communicate in a way that allows your expertise to be heard. Rachel discovered the secrets that change everything. It's not what you're communicating. She already had great ideas. But how you're communicating that triggers either receptivity or resistance. Master the how, and your what will finally get heard. And here's how Rachel learned to navigate each gatekeeper. The first gatekeeper, which is perceived value, instead of minimising, I might be wrong, but she learned to ground her insight in evidence. Based on Q3 data, here's what I'm seeing. This positioned her equally valuable without threatening others. Same insight, different how. Perceived a completely different way. The second gatekeeper, which is the need for clarity. She replaced hedging her bets with clarity bridges. While we're still gathering data, the trend clearly shows this provides certainty even in uncertainty, and what stays the same, the how, transforms the impact. The third gatekeeper, sense of control. Rather than directive statements, she used inclusive language. What if we considered, or I'm curious about your thoughts? These maintained others' sense of choice. The fourth gatekeeper, genuine connection. She started sharing her thinking progress. I struggle with this too until I noticed this created connection through her experience. Stop perfecting what you say and start mastering how you say it. For the fifth gatekeeper, she began claiming her contribution clearly. Building on the framework I introduced last week, this established clear attribution without aggression. But here's what made the real difference. Rachel learned to recognise when imposter syndrome was sabotaging her how. She developed a pre-meeting protocol. 1, a power pose for 60 seconds. This changes your neurochemistry to support a confident how. 2, she wrote 3 unique insights only she could contribute, grounded in her what expertise. 3, she set her intention. I'm here to contribute value, not provide worth, shifting how from performance to purpose. And when imposter syndrome arose mid-conversation, She used bridge phrases that navigated the gatekeepers. Let me think about that for a moment. This maintains value, but while buying time. Here's my perspective based on this provides clarity while claiming expertise. I'm still refining this idea, and here's what I'm seeing. Shows humanity while maintaining authority. Your ideas are brilliant. It's the how that's blocking them. Communicating confidently while battling imposter syndrome means that you'll need scripts that feel authentic, not performed. It is quite a challenge for most people, particularly when you're first starting out with AI. If you want to experiment with confident communication, here's a ChatGPT prompt to try. And remember, you need to keep reprompting it until it sounds authentically you. Help me rephrase this idea to sound more confident without being aggressive, and insert the statement that you want to rephrase. You'll probably get something like, I recommend you consider implementing this strategy instead of, maybe we could possibly try this. It's more direct, it's more confident, but if you're like most women leaders caught in imposter syndrome, you'll immediately think, this doesn't sound like me. What if I'm wrong? This sounds too assertive for my organisational culture. And this is the problem with some of the generic AI. It can change what you say, but it doesn't understand the leadership presence. And it isn't about what you're communicating, but how you're communicating. And the how involves navigating invisible psychological triggers that standard AI can't address. But do keep prompting, because eventually you will find language that feels authentic. Generic AI won't help you with understand the nuanced dance of the 5 gatekeepers, or why confident communication feels so risky when you're battling imposter syndrome. It fixes your what when your problem is more than likely the how. Escaping imposter syndrome in your communication isn't about using stronger words. If it were that simple, you'd already be heard in every meeting. What keeps most leaders stuck isn't the mechanics. It's the psychology of speaking up when you feel like a fraud, the fear of triggering the wrong response, the exhaustion of constantly calculating how to sound confident without seeming arrogant or full of yourself. The influence architect understands something that generic AI doesn't. It's not what you're communicating, it's how you're communicating. It doesn't just give you better words, it helps you navigate the psychological landscape of influence. That's why inside the Intentional Leader Blueprint coaching experience, you get access to the influence architect, a custom AI designed specifically with the Leader Within method and the 5 gatekeepers. It helps you master the how by transforming or supporting you in these 5 ways. Analysing your communication patterns, identifying which gatekeepers you typically trigger, and why crafting messages that navigate all gatekeepers simultaneously so that you're heard without threatening, without being aggressive or full of yourself. Same message, different how, completely different impact. Providing imposter to influence scripts that acknowledge a growth edge while owning your expertise authentically and authoritatively. The what is your expertise and the how is your influence. 4th, role-playing difficult conversations with gatekeeper analysis so that you can practice the how before high-stakes moments or difficult conversations. And then 5th, unlocking coaching questions like, which gatekeepers is my how triggering? And how can I deliver my what without triggering resistance in others? Questions that shift you from performance to genuine influence. Let me give you an example. When the influence architect is used to prepare for crucial budget conversations, instead of confidence tips, you could get something like this. Based on your pattern of triggering threat responses through over-explaining, start with connection, such as I've been wrestling with our resource allocation challenge. Then provide clarity data. The analysis shows 3 clear patterns. Then honour choice. I'd love to hear your thoughts on which path resonates most. Maintain value balance. Building on Tom's point about efficiency ensures contribution clarity. This is the framework I've developed that might help us all move forward. Do you hear the difference? This isn't just about confident communication. It's about strategic influence. The influence architect isn't changing her what, it's transforming her how. That's the power of the influence architect. It helps you move from imposter communication to influential conversation, from self-doubt to strategic dialogue. Master the how, and your what will finally get the recognition it deserves. So let's imagine what happens when a leader masters the 5 gatekeepers while breaking free of imposter syndrome. Picture Rachel, the composite of so many women leaders I've coached. Brilliant insights, but struggled to be heard. When she learned the 5 gatekeepers while managing her imposter syndrome, here's what shifted. She didn't just speak up more. She was heard differently. Within weeks, people started seeking her input. Rachel always has such clear perspective, they'd say. The same brain that had the brilliant idea finally had a voice that could deliver them. She went from being as smart but tentative to strategic and thoughtful. Same ideas, same expertise, same Rachel. The only difference? She mastered how she was communicating, not what. Here's the deeper shift. Her reputation transformed. Her ideas weren't just heard, they were implemented. The what had always been excellent. Once she mastered how, everything changed. 3 months later, when that same strategy issue arose, the one that had cost $500K, Rachel spoke up again, this time navigating all 5 gatekeepers. And guess what? Her message landed. The company avoided the $1 million mistake, and Rachel was recognised as the strategic voice. It wasn't what she was saying that changed, it was how she was saying it that transformed her leadership presence. These are the kind of results I've seen time and time again when leaders master confident communication and difficult conversations or high-stakes conversation. And in my next cohort of the Intentional Leader Blueprint coaching experience, we're enhancing week 3 with the Influence Architect AI, so that you not only learn the 5 gatekeepers, you'll have a custom AI partner helping you master how in every crucial conversation. Because confident communication isn't about eliminating self-doubt. It's about mastering how you speak despite it. That's a wrap from our week 3 of our From Invisible to Influential 6 weeks series. You've just discovered how to master the 5 gatekeepers of communication with confidence, even when imposter syndrome strikes. Remember that you already have brilliant ideas. You already have the expertise. It's not what you're communicating that needs to change. It's how you're communicating that determines your influence. Master the how, and your what will finally get the recognition it deserves. Combine that with your tiger time and daily blueprint, you're building real momentum in learning to think, communicate, and show up differently. But here's the thing. Glimpsing transformation and living it are two different things. If you're ready to stop being the best kept secret in your organisation and want the support to turn these insights into your own reality, go to sue-ann.com.au/intentional and discover from invisible to influential in just 6 weeks, where strategic leadership coaching meets AI tools that think with you. Stop perfecting what you'll say and start mastering how you say it. Remember, you're only one reconstructed thought away from the breakthrough you deserve in your life and your leadership journey. Next week, we'll talk about presence, leadership brand, and visibility, and how you can move from invisible to influential. Until then, my lovely, keep leading with clarity, passion, and purpose.